Hello everyone. So I thought, since it seems so popular talking about different brain structures and how they're affected by yoga, why not talk about the actual chemicals, the neurotransmitters that course through these different structures, giving rise to a host of different effects. And to begin this series of Welcome to Neurotransmitters, I wanted to go over glutamate, which is the primary excitatory neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. Its counterpart is GABA, which I have touched on before, but we're not going to talk about GABA today, just glutamate. So glutamate is released in really high levels, especially when we're little, because it's involved in the process of learning and setting down new pathways. Glutamate's being released all the time, but high-level glutamate release happens during things where we're really excited, and new pathways got laid down, where unfortunately trauma occurs, and also new pathways are encoded, and also during substances of misuse taking, and that also forges new pathways. So I want to talk a little bit about this high-level release of glutamate, which causes this kind of real encoding of pathways. So that process is known as long-term potentiation, and it lays down pathways within your brain that will be really entrenched, hard to move, but allows for rewiring. So what generally happens? So we have neurons within the brain, right? Unique to the nervous system are these nerve cells, neurons. And one neuron, the presynaptic neuron, that means before the gap, will send information to another neuron, the postsynaptic. And really what it'll do is either it will excite the next neuron, passing on a pathway and causing that to be activated, or it will inhibit it. So given that glutamate is excitatory, it's going to excite a pathway. When high levels of glutamate are released from presynaptic to postsynaptic neurons, really high levels, uniquely this process is no longer linear, and instead the postsynaptic neuron actually sends glutamate back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And through that unique action, a really strong pathway is maybe newly created, or a pathway that already exists is more deeply entrenched, which is why an exciting experience is something that we can really come back to. Unfortunately, why trauma feels so deeply, one of the reasons, so deeply embedded within us, and why taking substances of misuse can have such a profound effect so quickly on the brain. Now, from the positive perspective, we can actually use this because we know that rapid breathing actually increases levels of glutamate. So if you were in a good place, and it's really important that you wouldn't have high-level anxiety and anxiety disorder, PTSD, and also either schizophrenia or bipolar, where glutamate pathways are very delicate and you don't want to play with them, right? So if you don't have any of those potential contraindications, you can engage in rapid breathing practices, and there are many of them, whilst focusing on something positive, and at least hypothetically, you would be laying down new pathways in your brain. So practices that you could use are varied, things like Bhastrika, things like Kapalabhati, things like holotropic breathing, which actually is a technique where you usually work with somebody else and actually helps to resolve sometimes traumatic memories, but there's a lot of safety there. And of course, Wim Hof breathing as well. So all of these would likely engender that effect. And if you're going to do it, wonderful. It's an expedient means. Make sure you're also cardiovascularly well. That's really important. And that you don't have any of the other contraindications. But I personally love doing rapid breathing and then following it by slow breathing, because I know that has additional effects on the nervous system, and allowing this real flexibility and potential change. It just highlights, when we think about neurotransmitters and the relationship to yoga, how incredibly wise the ancient yogis were without having the specific knowledge base we do now, but an energetic one. So, happy learning about glutamate. Namaste.